Hi, it's Rich Tarani. Thanks for watching TMC Net's Editor's Day Santa Clara 2015. On our program is David Friedlander. He's with Panzura. And David, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, great. Thank you, Rich. Thanks for having me here.
I should say welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been on before, just with a different organization, and we're thrilled to have you with Panzura, and we're excited to know more about the company.
Sure. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what we do. We turn cloud storage like Amazon or Azure or Google into your primary file storage so that you can access your files as though they're local from any office anywhere in the world that you have.
Okay, so first question that's going to come to mind is, what do you do in terms of ensuring that there's performance?
Sure. So most of our customers have either virtual appliances from us or physical appliances that do have SSD drives, and so that gives them adequate performance for files, right? So it's really designed as a file server that then plugs into the cloud. And they're able to share files and access them as though they're local, as though they're all sitting in the same room, I should say, from anywhere in the world. So we have a lot of customers like Milwaukee Tool has offices in Wisconsin as well as China, and they're able to share very, very sort of complex project files, high-speed video files, 4,000 frame a second video files across those offices as though they're working right next to each other.
Did you say how many frames did you say?
So they have 4,000 frame a second video they use.
4,000 frames a second. Okay.
So that's the latest thing, right? The 4,000 frame a second video, and they're shooting video of their whatever drills or other tools as they're functioning, and then sharing those across the product development teams. But those teams are in China and all over Wisconsin or elsewhere.
Fantastic. So questions that come to mind. Does a company need to change its backup or disaster recovery plans if they use the cloud as their primary storage?
So if you use cloud as primary, it improves your backup and archiving and DR. Many companies that we work with, when they come to us, they have backup, tape, off-site DR for each office, and they may have 10 or 20 or 100 offices for that matter, and they're doing that each locally. So they have these islands of infrastructure. If you go to and make Amazon your primary file storage, you've got Amazon taking care of backup because we snapshot it, and you can always go back to a point in time. It's all backed up into the cloud. They take care of DR, so that if you have an outage of the site, they take care of the DR for you. You can come back to that from any other site. And they also, of course, have redundancy across data centers. They have more nines of availability and durability than anyone else can provide.
So is the implication that you don't necessarily need to do the backups if you have your information in the cloud because the backup's being done for you?
Yeah, essentially the backup's being done for you. I mean, you want to make sure that the cloud provider can deliver on that, and that they're doing the archiving and backup. But as long as you can get back to that point in time or restore files, they're really taking care of that for you from an infrastructure perspective.
So a common challenge that enterprises are dealing with now is ransomware, like a CryptoLocker attack. Mm-hmm. What happens if a CryptoLocker attack hits your office and you're using cloud storage? Is it because if you're not using cloud storage, it'll encrypt all your data on the network. If you are using cloud as part of the network, will the same thing? I imagine the same thing will happen to your cloud storage.
So there's certainly, depending on how your cloud storage is implemented and how the solution is set up, there is a risk, of course, as with anything. We've actually had customers go through some similar scenarios where there was sort of not exactly a ransomware scenario, but where they had a virus and it infected a large number of files. They were able to go back to a snapshot point in time before that happened and restore from there.
So it's important that your cloud vendor supports or you pay for that. Because if you're not backing up, you need to have some guarantee that you're able to get like you just said, you have to get back to a snapshot before you got hit with whatever it is you got hit with.
Exactly, yeah. So we have a snapshot capability. The whole file system is snapshotted. So all your files from every office get snapshotted in whatever schedule you set. And then you can always just go back and pull either individual files, or you can pull, of course, the whole file system if you need to.
Now, obviously, there's tremendous amount of flexibility, and in some cases, there'll be cost savings because of the management of tapes on various sites. But if you only have one site, is it less expensive to use a solution like yours, or is it cost similar? Is it cost more? Like, how does that work out? I'm saying that only because disk, although disk storage in the cloud is getting cheaper and cheaper, but so are 5 terabyte hard disks. I think you pick one up for now under $150, under $50. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah. I mean, for very small customers where you just have a few terabytes of data, you probably want to find relatively affordable and expensive solutions that'll just be a couple $100 in that range. If you have a large amount of data, even if you have one site, or if you have just one site in DR, like for example, as a radiology association we work with, they have 100 terabytes of image data, and that's growing quickly. And they said they're projecting 250 terabytes in the next year or two.
Wow.
And so they don't need to access all of that all the time, so they use us to archive into the cloud. And they're primarily based at one site, but that's something that's still helpful to them rather than having to have all of this by the EMC or NetApp or other arrays. They're able to really reduce the costs and get just a couple of cents a gigabyte per month from their cloud provider.
And so basically they just will back that up at night or something? Because I imagine that you've got to have quite a connection, right, to be able to back up that kind of data.
It's a continuous process, right? So as data goes into the local cache, it then gets pushed to the cloud. So they don't need to schedule a backup window. It happens kind of continuously, and more of it may move overnight, but it's a continuous process.
But in that case, that's more of an archiving solution that you're providing. So it sounds like you have flexibility in the tool set.
Yeah. We archive is almost like a side benefit for most of our customers. Some of them, that's a key value. For many of them, it's just something that happens as they implement it.
Okay. We didn't talk about value or cost. How does that work? Your price, your solution.
So for most of our customers, there are two benefits. One is infrastructure consolidation, and if they're coming from a consolidation standpoint, what happens is they have, as I mentioned, they have islands of infrastructure, tape, backup. They even have things like WAN optimization because they're trying to improve performance of applications over the network. They may have expensive network infrastructure, MPLS lines, and a lot of that will go away. So right there's a cost savings. We also see, though, from from a productivity standpoint, we have customers, many of them in the architecture and engineering or manufacturing space, with engineers or architects who may bill out on projects at $100, $110 an hour, and they're waiting for files. They're waiting for files to open. They're waiting for files to copy, sometimes upwards of 30 minutes or hours for some of these big files to move. And that's just a lost productivity right there. So we see on average our customers actually really between the infrastructure and productivity seeing about $1.5 million savings over a couple of years, 3 or 4 years time, when they do all of that. Most of them come from a business standpoint.
Wow.
How can I solve the collaboration challenge? And then they see the infrastructure gains as well.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So what else should the viewers know? In other words, you've got 30 seconds to a minute. Tell them anything else that they should know about your company, and also why they should call and purchase from your company.
Sure. So we see a real trend here where companies are really trying to take advantage of the cloud, not just for backup or archive or development or test, but for primary file storage, for making cloud really part of their infrastructure, for creating a true hybrid cloud. And that's what we're able to do. So we're able to take companies like EA Sports from 1.5 petabytes of data spread across 35 sites down to 45 terabytes. That's petabytes to terabytes of data, and help them move those files very, very quickly, or just transfer those files for building their games between sites in just minutes or seconds instead of the hours it was taking them. So that's really the benefit that we see, is that you're not just getting the infrastructure consolidation, as you're really getting from the cloud, as you're getting the productivity as well, and the ability to really function as a global organization.
Is that because you have, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what you just said there, but do you have distributed caching whereby files are, so basically what that means is that if I'm working on a file here and I save it in one location in Santa Clara, then it's going to simultaneously get pushed out to the local caching servers in my other locations. And so instead of someone else having to download from a cloud, which could take a long time, they'll download it from a locally cached version.
Yeah.
So that's where the productivity comes in.
Yeah. So if I'll go into the kind of the weeds here for a second, if you'll indulge me on what we do. There's a few things. Yeah. So there's a few things that make that possible. So We do, as you said, we have caching at each site. So we have an appliance, virtual or physical, at every site that customers connect into the cloud and pulls the data down. We dedupe and compress globally, so each unique block is only stored once. So if you have the same file somewhere else, we don't need to make copies of that, or if you have similar files, right? So that helps. That helps with the data transfer. And we also have locking, global locking. So the file locking makes sure that if you say you have a file here in Santa Clara and I'm in New York and I try to open that file, you have it open, it'll tell me that file's locked. And I can't make changes to it while you're using it.
Sure.
And that doesn't normally work over the network very efficiently, but we do that in real time. So that allows for the real-time collaboration. As far as the other question you asked, I think, about can you see those files, as soon as they're created, you can see them. Even if the file hasn't moved yet, what we do is we take the metadata for that file and we make that metadata available immediately. So just the file name, the time it was saved, who saved it, some other information about it is now available to you. As soon as I save a file, you'll see it. And then if you click on it, either it's already there because that data is there because of dedupe and compression, or you pull it over. Moving the data is fast.
Very cool.
But opening the file can take a long time if you don't have the actual information there. So it's a big NAS in the sky, really.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to ask one last question, even though we kind of ended before, but it's really fascinating to me. Is for someone who's looking to buy, is there some sort of ROI calculator that they're able to figure out why it would make sense to do so or not in terms of productivity saved and things like that? Or do they just know they're a candidate because of some of the use cases we're discussing?
Usually those use cases, the collaboration, the consolidation, infrastructure consolidation, or just making cloud primary might be something they look at, or the large file distribution. Our teams, there's lots of reasons they may come to us. Our team generally has an ROI exercise they'll go through. We're working on making it a little more consumable, say online, but we have something we work.
It's not so easy. I'm understanding as I'm asking the question, but I think the case studies. I mean, if you have huge files in multiple locations, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? That's if you have huge amounts of storage, it's maybe a no-brainer as well. So I mean, those are the two use cases that stand out in my head.
Yeah.
If you have lots of locations, the odds are that you're going to have a good amount of storage as well. So you're probably a good candidate.
Yeah, it's usually those technical applications like CAD. Or software development like EA does, or moving those large files around the network, or and kind of that they're struggling with it, bring them to us.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Okay. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah.
This was great.
Yeah. Thanks very much for your time.